Welcome back to the Monmouth Basketball Hawks Nest podcast. Welcome back to another season of Monmouth Basketball. It might look a little different this year, but we are back. You're listening with Ryan and Mark on the podcast, and we're really excited to have you guys back for our third season of the podcast. For all of our Monmouth listeners, we thank you for all of your support over the last 2.5 years, with over 3,000 hits since we began our journey with you, so thank you for that. Please spread the word if you are new. If you're new, welcome to the podcast. We're looking for all kinds of students, people that go to the games and don't know about us yet. We are your number one source for Monmouth basketball news and content outside of Eddie and Steve on the Monmouth broadcast. So we are your number one source. You're getting a fan's perspective. Mark and I are 2 season ticket holders and diehard Monmouth fans. We live and die by this team. We have other favorite pro teams. Nothing hurts worse than a Monmouth loss. So these are the guys to listen to right here. Just to note, we are not associated with the college in any way besides being former graduates. We don't have sponsors. We don't get paid for this. This is just our love for the team. And no matter whether we are 20-0 or 0-20, hopefully not 0-20, this is your spot for everything Monmouth basketball. Once in a while, we'll chime in about the women's team. If other sports are in season, they have a big accomplishment. We'll talk about football, field hockey, whoever's out there. This is mainly about Monmouth men's basketball. So let me introduce you to the other guy who needs no introduction because he's the guy you will definitely hear if we're at the Ocean First Bank Center this year as the loudest guy in the arena. Welcome back to Mark.
And you know what? This has been such a healthy outlet for both of us during regular times and during these times, COVID times, tough times. This is even more of a healthy outlet. I probably won't be able to be yelling and screaming about things in the arena, but that hasn't stopped me so far this NFL season in my living room and won't continue to stop me as ESPN Plus and the Monmouth Hawks start rolling through. And as Ryan and I always tell you, you know, it's our family, it's our friends, it's our jobs, and then it's Monmouth University basketball for us. And just so excited to let everybody soak in a little bit of normalness, if you can call Ryan and I and what we do normal. Sit back, relax, enjoy. We're going to get up for this season no matter where this season takes us.
And, you know, something I didn't mention yet, for those newcomers here, we have questions for every podcast that the fans can ask us, and we will include just about every one of them on the podcast as long as they're appropriate and we don't think it's kind of attacking anyone. And we really never had that before. So we will answer questions that you email to us, and we'll get into that later. You know, we last talked to you guys in April, I think. We waited a little bit until after the MAC tournament was canceled because at that moment, I mean, we were going to AC and then we weren't, and the world was shutting down, and you know, we were worried about our families and being healthy and safe, and we didn't feel like it was appropriate to talk to you guys right away. So we took a beat. We waited for a couple months, and then we kind of ended the season on a weird note with that podcast. So I'm glad to be doing this now because it's finally great to talk to everybody. And now we are supposed to have a season. I'm hoping we have a season. And it looks like it's supposed to start next week, hoping everything goes well. So it's great to talk to everybody again and just kind of reconnect with the Monmouth fan base. And, you know, last year was a roller coaster of a season. They went 18-13, which was right on par with how Mark and I predicted it would go, and 12-8 in the MAC. That's almost identical to what we predicted last year. They were great at home at 11-2. It was a roller coaster all year, though. I mean, they had some tough early games with Hofstra, Kansas State trip. We knew that was going to be tough from the start. They went on a great run in the middle of the season. They had some really disappointing games. They picked it up the last week of the season. And then you get to the MAC tournament, and they're never able to get on the court. They're supposed to have Quinnipiac, you know, the 4 versus 5 matchup, and Siena waiting in the finals. And, you know, unfortunately, like we talked about in April, it was the matchup that we'll just never know what would have happened. So as disappointing as that is, we got a new season in front of us. Hopefully everything goes well, whether we're playing the NCAA tournament, whether it's March or May, or I don't even care if it's July and my wedding day doesn't matter to me. That got postponed too, so everything's getting affected here. But as long as we're playing basketball this year, we're all going to be happy.
So Ryan kind of took you back through what we went through last season. And there were times when it was miserable. There were times when it was so much fun. And then utter disappointment at the end to not get to see this thing through down in Atlantic City, where Monmouth would have had one of, if not the strongest fan contingent there. And really, you know what? The Quinnipiac team, we both thought Monmouth would get by them, and then you'd have a chance at a Siena team that was really good. But you know what? We kept saying last year, well, if you're Monmouth, you got two of the top 6 players in the league in one backcourt, you always had a shot. And that kind of segues us into what I like to call the elephant in the room when you're starting to talk about transitioning from last season's Monmouth to this season's Monmouth. But before we get into this, Monmouth fans, this is going to be an emotional segment for you. You might get angry, you might get upset. We're going to pull on your heartstrings. So, grab your favorite adult beverage, go grab your emotional support dog, go cuddle up in a warm blanket because this is going to be a little rough for you. 2018 offseason, Micah Seaborn leaves early to go pro. 2019 offseason, Nick Rutherford grad transfers to St. John's. 2020 offseason, in the middle of the pandemic, in what I was quoted as saying for myself was the worst day of a group of miserable days in the pandemic, Ray Salnave grad transfers to DePaul. And just so that you know, Monmouth fans, with the NCAA approving that one-time immediate eligibility rule for all transfers, our heartbreak of losing our top players to bigger places may sadly continue. But again, before we can look forward to this season, we must address the departure of Ray Salnave.
Let's just get it over with. Rip it off like a Band-Aid.
So this is a transfer decision that has affected me a lot personally. Ray was among my favorite King Rice era players based on his skill, his swagger, his attitude, his personality, the clutchness. I remember watching Ray play at Cardozo on SNY before he had made it to West Long Branch, and just being so impressed with him, so excited about him coming into Monmouth. I remember thinking that the Salnave, Big Sam Ibiza Bay recruiting class was going to be the best recruiting class in the MAC that year, and that both guys were going to end up being stars at Monmouth. Unfortunately, Ray decided to chase either the exposure of the bigger conference by going to perennial Big East doormat DePaul, of all places. And whether it be, that he wants to play more point guard, which we had heard, which possibly wasn't going to be an option for him at Monmouth, or he wanted more tape of himself against those top-level colleges and top-level players, he left us. Okay, and us being fans, and he left the fans, he left the community, and mostly he left his teammates, and notably he left fellow seniors Dion Hammond, George Pappas, Malik Martin, and Marcus McClary. And those were 4 guys that he went into battles with for 3 straight years. He lost a MAC title game with, and he did not get to see out last year's postseason with. Just let that sink in for you for a moment. So every time I see him in a DePaul uniform, it will sting. It will make me sick to my stomach, like the DeAndre Hopkins walk-off touchdown last Sunday against my Buffalo Bills. It will make me angry, and most of all, it would just make me sad. I cannot cheer for the Blue Demons at all this year. And every time they're on local TV against Seton Hall, St. John's, it will just be a reminder of the fact that one of my favorite King Rice players ever left us. And I hope that DePaul goes and however many games they play this year.
Good start with that. So I'm going to preface this by saying I think everybody's got to respect each other in terms of how we feel about this, because you saw it on Facebook in the spring when we were trying to do the Stay Ray campaign, which didn't last. And, people were very high on Ray and wishing him good luck, which is fine. And people were saying he gave a lot to the university and we still respect them. That's fine. I think it's okay to have that side of it where you still respect the guy and you still are thankful for what he gave to us. And we are too. but I also think it's okay for people to steam a little bit and to not be happy and okay with how it ended with him. I think both sides, it's okay. I think everybody's got to respect how we feel about this because I know I'll get crap for this on Facebook later, and I don't really care. But here's the thing. Here's
Do we ever? Do we ever care, Ryan?
not really, unless my mom listens to it and gives me a nasty call later because I attacked somebody. But I care about Eileen, but that's about it. So, I respect that people have to make their decisions based on themselves for their development and their future. I get that part of it, and I respect that. I personally haven't been able to understand how this is a better decision for Ray. And that's just me, but now we don't live amongst the team. We're not with them every day. We don't know the behind the scenes stuff. Was there a rift between him and King, which Ray did get suspended a couple times, and they had some problems. That's just speculation. Did Ray want to go to St. John's the whole time, and when they backed down their offer last minute, he kind of severed ties with King and Monmouth, and he had to have to go to DePaul. Was he unhappy here? You don't really know, and we'll never know really unless he comes out and says it, which he probably won't. But let me say this: I understand the intrigue of getting some games on Fox Sports 1, on national TV here and there. You're going to get killed by Villanova and Creighton and those guys, but that's besides the point. Ray's not an NBA talent. Ray is a borderline G League overseas talent. Like, he's an overseas guy. He'll get a contract over there, no matter whether he's at Monmouth or DePaul. That's his range, and that could be Spain, it could be China, who knows? But he's an overseas talent player. He's not an NBA guy. So to me, getting the extra exposure didn't make sense to me. And again, you want to step up in competition, that's fine. But so now you're in the middle of Chicago in a pandemic where you don't know anyone there, and you're probably going to be in last place in your conference. And really, you look at the past guys from Max DeLeo to Chris Brady and Justin Robinson and all these guys that have played overseas now, Deion Jones in Japan, they didn't need Fox Sports 1. They had ESPN Plus, and not even that. Max barely even had that. They had ESPN 3 or ESPN Plus and a couple national TV games a year, and those guys are all in the pros overseas. So you don't really need that at Monmouth. We've shown year in, year out. We send one or two guys to the pros every year. So, what I'm about to say is going to sound harsh, and you want to come at me, that's fine. But here's the reality of the situation. You can say I'm wrong or whatever. This is the truth. Unless DePaul goes to the NCAA tournament and makes a little run, so win a game or two, and Ray is the main guy in that team, no one's ever going to remember Ray was there. I know that sounds harsh, but who remembers the transfer that's there for 1 year if you don't win? Like, I'm sure there's transfers at Monmouth that we barely remember that were there for a year. Oh, yeah, who was that guy again? That's going to be Ray if they don't go to the tournament. He's not the main piece of it. And, legacy means different things to different people, and I don't know what it meant to Ray, but if he stays at Monmouth and him and Deion and Pappas and Totley take this team to the tournament, have a great season, and make a run, he's a legend forever at Monmouth. He is a legend. He did what the great Justin Robinson couldn't do, get to the NCAA tournament. And you know how great we talked about Justin on this show. He's a legend, Ray would have been. And unfortunately, his legacy is a guy that, left a bad taste in people's mouths. He was very fun to watch. He was the leader of the team. He was charismatic. He was so much fun to watch. But, you left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And I get the appeal of being in the Big East. To me, it's still a very puzzling decision. I wish him good health, happiness. I hope it's all worth it for him. And while I respect the decision, it's not one I'm ever going to like or agree with a smart move. And it is what it is. And now we got to move on. We got a new season in front of us. We have guys that are at Monmouth, that want to be at Monmouth, and are eager and ready to give us a title run. So, we're moving on to this team now.
Yeah. Even harder to listen to you talk about it. As hard as it was for me to discuss it, it's even harder to listen to you talk about it because I could hear the anger, the frustration, the angst. It's such an emotional thing, and people are probably going to get on us about the way that we're reacting about this, but we are not saying that we don't appreciate every single thing that Ray did for the program, for the school, for us as a podcast. We appreciated every single moment that Ray was with the Monmouth program.
You know what it is? It's not even the decision. It's that people constantly leave mid majors, and that's not just Monmouth. People leave mid majors every year, and this is the sick feeling that mid major fans are less in their stomachs. So we're talking about it, but so are 200 other teams in the country every year, and it's what could have been. We've been so close to the tournament with 2 years with Justin, with the team that was the 6th seed with Dion and Ray that went to the finals and lost to Iona, and now we would have had this core of Topley and Ray and Dion and Pappas and Vaughn developing. This team could have been so great, and they still can be great. They still can be a MAC title team. But you see how great this team could have been. It could have possibly rivaled those Robinson Hornby teams in terms of talent, and it sucks because it's what could have been instead of what is. So it is what it is. You respect it and you move on.
Yeah, and Ryan and I, we're not here to be politically correct with every single thing. We're here,
Nope.
like we've always said, we're here to be the voice of Monmouth Nation. So let's kind of take a deep dive now about how Ray's exit will affect us on the court. Okay, because we've already gone over how it affects us off the court as fans. Ray was top 5 in the nation in shot percentage off the dribble pull-up. In the nation, out of every single Division I basketball player. So Ray had some special talents. Okay, he had a knack for hitting shots in the biggest moments. He hit game winners. He always impacted the game all over the court, rebounding, playmaking, steals, getting the free throw line at 85%, and making other people better. Overall, he had a very good season. His redshirt junior year at Monmouth, but he wasn't as efficient during MAC play. Overall, his shooting percentages dipped in the MAC conference slate to 38% overall and 31% from three. His three-point shooting in the non-conference was nearly 50%. In the MAC, it was under 20%. So his overall percentages for the year were 38%, 31%, but during MAC play, he shot under 20% from three. 30 out of 152. And those numbers and the expected emergence of Donovan Totley as the next scoring and playmaking guard under King Rice might make the Salnave departure hurt a lot less on the court and eventually hurt a lot less emotionally and mentally as we move into this year.
So, we talked about Totley for a minute there, and to me, he's the key for this team. We know what Dion is. We know what Malik and Pappas and hopefully Vaughn are all going to do. Totley's the key because, you and I talked about it you don't call it Mac Madness anymore, but it's the Monmouth night where the fans come back and watch the guys before the season. And I said to you that night, Totley walking around that arena before he's even really on the team because he was still a transfer to them. He looked like he wanted to be king. Like he wants to own that arena. And he walked around that place like, I don't care about Ray and Dion or who's Justin Robinson. I own this place. Like that's the look on his face that night. I'm like, this guy's got like a huge confidence and swagger about him. So I want to see this guy play. And, as of now, it seems that he's going to be on the mend for a little bit. We don't know how long because we know King Rice holds everything very close to the vest with injuries and suspensions and anything that's going on with his team. He doesn't give you a whole lot of detail, which is fine. That's his strategy. That's his thing. But, hopefully he's out there as soon as possible because I cannot wait to see him in a Monmouth uniform. So this season is going to look different because we do not have the typical 10-game out-of-conference rigorous schedule that we usually do leading up to MAC play. It's going to be back-to-back games versus the same team in a weekend on a Friday, Saturday, and then you have a week off until the next week. And it's home away, home away. So we start with Iona at home for 2 games, and then we go to Ryder away. Oh, no, we go to – who do we go to?
While he's saying that, I just have to say, although this might not be ideal for coaches and for players, this is a podcaster's dream schedule.
You better believe it. Oh, we're at Canisius. We're home versus Ryder at the end. That's what I mixed up. So, we go back and forth between this home series and away series, it's great for us, again, like Mark said, because we can do a Sunday night podcast and bang out both, and that's our one for the week. We're good. We're not worried about Tuesday night and Thursday. Should we match them together? So we do two separate ones. It's easier for us, but this is also 2020, so you know what's going to happen now. There's going to be canceled games. They're going to be playing in the middle of the week anyway, so that's all going to go to hell soon anyways. But it's going to look a lot different. And you know what? So far, Monmouth had 2 shutdowns for positive tests. The Riders had a couple. Half the MAC's been out for the last couple weeks. So you just hope that they can contain it enough where they can still play. Even if somebody tests positive, you get tested in there quickly. You put the kids out there, and hopefully they're able to play. Because I'm telling you right now, if they got to shut down after every positive test for a player or staff member, guys, we're not having a season. Like this is not happening. So, either the guidelines got to change or they're going to push the season back a little further. And that's what I suggested, along with what Rick Pitino said in the meeting. He said it a day after.
Oh, you and Rick Pitino are thinking alike already.
I'm telling you. Coming. I'm telling you. I mean, I said 2 weeks ago, start it in February around Valentine's Day, and we have March Madness as Main Madness. It's still an M. Who cares? We're playing basketball.
Everybody mark that down. Ryan Kinghorn, big Rick Pitino guy.
I said it before Rick Pitino. That's all I'm saying. So, that's my thing. I want to have a full season. I don't want this schedule that's piecemeal together where we're going to have 3 weeks off and then 4 games in a row. Like, that's not the way to do basketball. So, to me, it's very risky what we're doing right now. But I think Rich Enzer and the MAC committee did the best job they could with the schedule. And I don't compliment Rich very often, so take it while you can. But, they did a good job with the schedule for what they have. I'm very nervous about it. I'm very nervous about finishing this season and having it flow every weekend. I don't know if it's going to happen. I hope to God it does, because I don't want it to shut down. I am nervous, though, because right now, New Jersey alone, we have 4,000 cases every day this week for the most part. So it's going around, it's coming back, and I just hope we don't have to shut this thing down when we could have waited a couple months and been patient. I'm trying to be very optimistic about it. It's very difficult because I see some people that, not to get political, but some people don't even believe this is real. This is just a cold, and I don't want to wear a mask and all this BS. It's real because, I was supposed to get married in July, and we're waiting a year for that, and we still don't even know if we can do that the way we wanted to. So it's real, people. Wear the mask. That's not that hard. So that's my little side rant there. But I just hope we can do this season the right way. And I'm nervous, but I'm hopeful. What do you got, Mark?
Yeah, I was a proponent of my plan was you put each conference in a bubble. You start sometime in the beginning of January, and each conference plays the top 8 besides the regular season winner play in a conference tournament. Your regular season winner gets an NCAA bid. The winner of your 8-team tournament gets an NCAA bid. You take the 2 NCAA tournament bid vouchers that you get back. You put those towards the cost of the bubble. You use what you would normally spend on travel on the bubble. People are going to say to me now, well, student athletes, they're student athletes. They should be getting a college experience. That ain't happening in New Jersey, people. All right.
They're remote anyway.
Yeah.
They're in their dorm.
They're all in their dorms. They're on lockdown, especially these kids. You know that the assistant coaches are doing more dorm checks, more everything than ever before to make sure that they're not going out and doing anything, I'm not going to say knucklehead like Murphy, okay? But they're not going to do, anything detrimental to them being eligible in the basketball games. So that was my plan. I spoke to some basketball people about it. There were some differing of opinions. Bubbles are too expensive, this and that. Hey, you could have taken half the MAC, 6 teams in one bubble, 5 in the other, and then switched it if the big bubble was too expensive. You could have gotten it done. Atlantic City was dying to have the MAC there again. That the Boardwalk Hall is just sitting there. You have hotels that are empty because people aren't going. You could have gotten creative with it, Ryan. But the MAC did what they think they could. Rich Enser and his people came up with a plan that I think is a solid plan. I tend to agree with you and Rick Pitino. Okay, you and Rick Pitino, your buddy, you're a big fan of his. I tend to agree with you guys that we should be pushing this off and having, a January, February start then and some May madness, and that would be fine as well.
So we start off with Hofstra next week, which is typically a game on our schedule. We've played them probably 6 or 7 years out of the last 10 years since I've been a student and a graduate of Monmouth. We play them almost every year, which is a great series because they're always a very competitive mid-major team. They're always around our level and sometimes even a little higher. So it's great competition. What's disappointing right now to me is we get the out-of-conference schedule, and we knew what it's going to look like for the most part. It's at Maryland, it's versus St. Francis Brooklyn, and it's versus Hofstra. And we knew it was going to be short, but the gaping hole in there, we know what it is, the North Carolina game. To me, I can't remember as a sports fan too many times where I was more excited ever than getting an email, not even watching a game, getting an email to show that we were hosting North Carolina and Roy Williams on our campus. And that doesn't happen. Like, it just doesn't happen. Like, for Kentucky, our home game was Madison Square Garden, and then we had to go to Kentucky and get our teeth kicked in. Like, North Carolina does not come to Monmouth, but they were. And, I know it's supposed to happen next year, and it will. It just, you get so amped up for that type of thing, and then once the pandemic started, you're kind of like, all right, I had a bad feeling this is going to happen. But you know what? The schedule is what it is. We still get Maryland, which is a great game to have. We get Hofstra, and then hopefully we can beat up on Brooklyn a little bit. A little brother team in the NEC. They're talking about trying to get the Ocean First Bank Center with some fans, with season ticket holders, whether that's 25 or 30% capacity. We did get an email about that for season ticket holders. They said December 23rd. Guys, I don't believe that. I think they said that a while ago, and they're hoping. Honestly, if we're back in there January, February, I'll be pretty happy. If not, guys, we're watching from home. And either way, you'll get us. And we've even talked about maybe doing a live Twitter stream or having some reactions for Mark and I mid-game to even a Periscope or something. I mean, something more creative that even during the timeouts, we can, draw something up to have a quick conversation, send it out to the fans. I'm trying to think of anything we can do to keep everybody entertained at home.
Encourage someone to call a timeout.
Yeah. I mean, maybe call in on Eddie's cell phone because he'll be able to hear it because nobody else will be in the arena. And can you tell Kenny to call a timeout already, will you? And maybe Eddie just will probably ignore us. But it is what it is. It sucks, no Carolina game, but we've got 3 good games coming up, and then a whole max slate of 20 games hopefully. So, Mark, you want to start with the newcomers? We'll roll through these guys and then talk about predictions at the end.
Roll through a freshman class, and this is a freshman class with players that, for most part, are unheralded. They didn't have a lot of competing offers. They are very much within the King Rice diamond in a rough type of players. The one guy that sticks out to me, and it's very interesting, Ryan and I are differing on our favorite player in the recruiting class, which is always good to have those debates. The guy who really sticks out to me, and I'm going through in numerical order, it's number 0, Miles Foster, 6'7", 230. He was offered by Rider. He was offered by Yale. Rider and Yale always have good front court players. Thick body, strong lefty big. He's got a freakish wingspan. He looks like a banger, and then all of a sudden he's got nice little shiftiness to him. So despite his girth, he could step out. He shot 40% from 3 his senior year, averaged 15 and 10. I think his body, his size, his length will allow him to support the MU front line as we begin the year without Nikkei Ruddy, who's out of action, recovering from, I believe it was a knee procedure or leg procedure in the offseason. I like Foster's ability. I think he could really develop into a very good MAC big. My only question is, Monmouth plays that 4-out, 1-in system. So at 6'7", 230, but having a 7-foot plus, I believe it's a 7'4" wingspan, can Foster play the 5 as a freshman and then going forward in his development.
Yeah, I mean, if he has that physical body, he's going to be used out there because we don't have a whole lot of options at the center position, which is a whole different discussion that we've had privately that we thought would be an issue for this year. But if Miles Foster has enough talent to really keep up with the bigs in the MAC, he's going to get playing time because we don't have a whole lot of guys to throw out there, especially with Ruddy out. It's Jarvis Vaughn, it's Malik Martin, who's undersized, but he can handle a little bit down there. And, you throw McClary down there sometimes. There's not many options down there. So if Foster's talented enough, he's going to get time out there.
Yeah, he could end up being your first true big off the bench
Yep.
November 25th against Hofstra. So then we go to number 14, Jack Holmstrom, 6'5", 200, lanky, lefty. King actually went out to Illinois to get him. He's a tall wing. He looks like he's going to play in that Colin Stewart, Lou Polari role. He's the son of a former D1 athlete who King actually coached many years ago at Illinois State. He shot 45% from three his senior year in high school. He's a real unknown, but he looks like he can project in a specialized role in the King Rice attack as a zone buster.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like he's going to be that next 3-point specialist, and most Monmouth teams have that. There's one guy to throw out there, and he's pretty much a straight 3-point shooter. And, maybe he's more than that. Maybe he's got a handle. Maybe he can get physical down low a little bit. He's not the biggest guy. He's only 200 pounds. But, listen, if he's there to knock down threes and he knocks them down, that's all we need from him. We have our core this year. We're not expecting, Jack Holmstrom to move mountains this year. We need him to go out there and do what he does. And if he can hit the 3-pointer like he did in high school, he's going to be just fine in our rotation.
So then we move into number 24, Miles Ruth, 6 foot, 150 pounds. So he's a string bean, folks. He projects as a tough on-ball defensive guard. He is not an outside shooter. He was heralded out of local program Don Bosco. You got a crowded veteran Monmouth backcourt this year. You got Totley, Pappas, and Chapu, who could all play point. Ruth probably won't have a big role as a freshman, but he could be a guy that you bring in maybe when you're trying to do like a full court press or you're going up against, a quick guard. Maybe you want to throw a different look at somebody. Again, another unheralded kid, but there were some basketball people around here who I spoke to who really liked the kid and told me that he is a big-time competitor and gets up for his opportunity to defend star guards.
So is he McClary 2.0?
A little bit smaller, but I like the overlap that you're going with there. A defensive kid, New Jersey kid from a big time program, a winner. I definitely like where you're going with that.
Next guy, Clement Vuga.
Here's Ryan's guy.
I think it's Clement, right? I did some research on him. I saw some YouTube stuff out there, and I guess he looked good. I mean, he's not a 5-star, 4-star, 3-star recruit, but he looked pretty good for a 6'9", 230 guy. He had a little bit of a handle. He had a nice touch to his shot, and he looked like a guy that might be able to help us this year. I don't think he's going to be a starter. He might only, it might take a while to break the rotation, but he looks like a guy that I think could have a nice skill set and actually help us this year. And when you hear these guys with these, middle Europe, Eastern European names coming in that aren't heavily recruited, who's this guy coming in? There's a guy when I was in college, Marcelo Rudiger, and you're like, oh, he's this big guy, he's a 6'10" body, whatever, and the guy wasn't that great. But you wonder with these guys coming in that aren't really in the United States landscape for that long. But I got to tell you, the tape looked pretty good on him. What do you think?
So here's what I think. Last year, you got a 6'9" kid from Virginia in Jarvis Vaughn. This year, you get a 6'9" kid from Slovenia, but by way of Virginia, in Clement Vuga. Who's the guy who has the ties to Virginia on the Monmouth staff? J.R. Reed. Who was a dominant 6'9" forward? J.R. Reed. If J.R. Reed likes both of those forwards and thinks that they can be J.R. Reed type players for Monmouth, then hey, we trust J.R. Reed.
All right, Donovan Totley time.
2018-19 with Chattanooga, true freshman. over 11 points, 3 assists per game. He has all the makings of a star at Monmouth. You have heard me say, Justin Robinson left. We missed out on R.J. Cole. He's the one who got away. We have not had that blur, that dominant speedster guard. He's here, people. His chemistry from years of playing with Dion should prove to be extremely valuable. His shooting percentages weren't great as a freshman, but they significantly improved as the year went on. And he has the reputation of a guy who's always getting shots up, which is something that many redshirt players tend to improve on during their redshirt year. Remember, Jelon Hornbeek wasn't supposed to be a great shooter coming out of Oklahoma with his transfer year. What did he do during his transfer year? He shot the ball nonstop all the time. What did Tokley do that we've heard? Shot the ball nonstop. I'll be making a deeper dive into Donovan in a written piece that I will post before tip-off, where I will tell Monmouth fans how Donovan Tokley will remind you of Justin Robinson while also allowing you to forget Ray Salnave.
Nice. I like that segue. I like that.
And then we go to Jarvis. Jarvis, 6'9", 225. He was expected to be a nice piece as a true frost last year, had some poor injury luck. Ryan and I both hope that he had a redshirt year last year and comes back as a redshirt freshman this year. He's a year older, he's stronger, he's more experienced. I expect to see Jarvis unleash the full arsenal, especially early on when Ruddy is out, and the only other traditional bigs on our roster are true freshmen. People around the program think that Jarvis has the potential to eventually be among the top bigs in the conference, thanks to his combination of size, athleticism, skill, and the way that he plays angry up front. Here is my strong take about Jarvis Vaughn, people, and I'm going to show my age a little bit here. If Jarvis Vaughn stays for another 4 years at Monmouth, he will eventually be the best Monmouth big man since Travis Taylor at Monmouth.
Love the take.
And then it really comes down to this when we're talking about next year. Can Tokley and Vaughn negate the losses of Salnave and Traore? Ray and Stoff combined for over 21 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 2.5 steals, and a block. At first look, it seems like that's a lot to ask from a duo that did not really see the floor last year. However, when you look at the ability, the pedigree, the speed, the size, the strength, the combination of Tokley and Vaughn, they absolutely can replicate those numbers. And Monmouth will be just as dangerous as last year if they do, considering their other graduations of Lou Polari and Big Sam were more just spare parts than key cogs last season.
Yeah, when we saw Jarvis Vaughn's YouTube tape from high school, it was unbelievable. He jumps off the page. He was one of the best players in the state of Virginia that year. And his athleticism is just something you don't see very often at Monmouth in a 6'9" guy. And, we saw him play a little bit. And at first, you think he's a little timid, and then he gets into the game a little bit, and he's a monster. He's blocking shots off the backboard. He's hitting jump shots. He can throw the ball down. He can really dunk the ball. He's going to be great for us. And if this kid can just stay healthy, he, like you said, he is going to be one of the greats at Monmouth if he can just stay on the court. So, I'm very excited to watch him in uniform. Last year we got a small taste, and then he got hurt, and they kind of just let him be a redshirt because at that point it wasn't worth him coming back and wasting the year. But I couldn't be more excited to watch this kid play this year.
And then you look at the returnees, and again, in numerical order, you got number 1, Gob Gabriel. He was a big-time recruit last year. We thought with his body type, he might take a year to really acclimate to the D1 level. You got Malik Martin outside of Tokley and Vaughn. He's my pick as a true returnee to really break out this year. His confidence was sky high towards the end of the year. He had a couple double-digit scoring games down the stretch. He really fit in well with the revamped pressing, trapping defense. Dion Hammond, probably the second favorite for MAC Player of the Year behind Pickett up at Siena, unanimous All-MAC first team. I think that Tokley's speed and playmaking will actually make Dion Hammond even better this year than last year. You got George Pappas, last year's most improved player, 8.5 points a game, 88% free throw shooting. He had a couple of huge performances against Ryder, up at Buffalo. I'm very interested to see what a Tokley, Pappas, Hammond lineup could look like offensively. You got Marcus McClary. He's 6'3". He plays like he's 6'8". Bangs inside. No one works harder, and nobody's a smarter player than him. I do hope that we see him as a defensive stopper a little bit more this year. You got Nikkei Ruddy, who was really coming on last year. He's going to play some center there. He'll probably be the second big behind Jarvis at the 5. We just hope that he gets healthy and gets his bounciness back. And then you got that quarterback. You got Sam Chapu, 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio last year. He will be, again, a factor in the backcourt, and that backcourt is the deepest backcourt in the MAC. So when you put it all together, what do I see? I see 1 and 2 in the non-conference. I think that Hofstra is really, really strong, and obviously Maryland's really strong. Remember 14-15, we got screwed out of beating Maryland with a couple bad whistles. I'm not sure that we'll be able to take down Maryland, but you never know because, Ryan, we're going to be playing probably in an empty Maryland arena.
No fans. Wait to intimidate the refs.
And I say that they go 12-8 in the MAC, 13-10 overall. And I have Monmouth as my preseason 3rd overall pick in the MAC behind Siena, who's got Pickett and Camper coming back. They have Gary Harris coming back. Then they got some good transfers. A guard, Hopkins from Belmont, a forward, Tate from URI. They got a big man, Curry from Detroit, potential rookie of the year, and Aiden Carpenter on the wing. But they did lose Don Carey, transferred to Georgetown, and Elijah Burns graduated. And then the only other team I have ahead of Monmouth is Iona. The big addition, Patino. The other big addition, a 7'1" big man, Schema, who people say kind of moves like Kevin Durant. They got a JUCO hotshot guard in Chavez, who's really, really good. Asante Gist is back. But, hey, they lost E.J. Crawford and A.G. to graduation, and Jelly Washington transferred to Long Beach State. Then I got Monmouth 3rd. I got St. Peter's 4th. I still think that they're fraudulent as a top-tier MAC team. I got our guy Masiello in 5th with Manhattan. They have some big transfers coming in. Point guard Nelson from Seton Hall. Big-time forward Jallo from UMass, who Monmouth almost brought in. A wing from George Mason, Douglas Stanley. Then they got Samir Stewart and Warren Williams back. And then the last contender for me is Niagara. Marcus Hammond. I think that he's right there with Dion and Pickett for Player of the Year. And then I round out with Canisius, Fairfield, Quinnipiac, Marist, and won't we all be happy if Ryder finishes last?
You know, before you said that, I was about to say, you know what's fun, Mark? Watching Ryder at the bottom of the conference rankings. That's fun. It's just fun to say, because every year those terrible fans they have, it's just fun to watch them at the bottom for once.
And one thing before you take over, Ryan,
Sure.
I am so happy that we get Iona early.
I know. Get him out of the way.
Because Patino and all that talent, I do think that Iona may have the most talented roster in the MAC. And the problem is when you bring in 8-9 new players, it's hard to mesh and gel all that talent together. So getting Iona early really is a feather in our cap. Thanks, Enser.
Let me tell you right now, if you don't think Rick Pitino is going to be a problem in this conference, you're wrong. That's not an opinion. You're wrong. All right. It's going to be a problem. He's going to have very good teams every year he's here. And some people are saying, oh, he'll only be here for a year or two and he'll leave. I don't think so. This might be his last stop. He's getting older now, and he loves Providence. I think he's tired of the big schools and the recruiting scandals and all the stuff that goes on at a place like Louisville and Kentucky. I think he's here to stay, which is a scary sentence coming out of my mouth. But I am very nervous about playing Iona, but I'm very happy it's early on. My conference rankings really quick. I'm going Iona number 1 because I think Rick Pitino, he's playing 4D chess versus the coaches in this conference. He's going to see things that they cannot see. He's a national champion. He's a Hall of Famer. He is playing 4D chess versus the likes of Greg Paulus and some of these guys in the conference. So I have the number 1. I hate saying that, but I do. It's a little less painful that it's not Clueless anymore, but it's still painful. I get Siena at 2 because they are the most talented team. I got Monmouth at 3, followed by Manhattan, St. Peter's, Niagara, Fairfield, Canisius, Quinnipiac, Marist, and our friends at Ryder at number 11. All right. For me, I have them going Monmouth about 12-8 in the MAC. I think they can go 2-1. I think they're good enough to beat Hofstra. That's going to be the deciding rubber game of that series. I have them going 12-8 in the MAC. I see some series they should split, some series they should sweep, and I don't see them being a lot better than 12-8. and I don't see them being much worse than 10-10. So that's kind of where I'm at with this team. I'm looking at the games right now. It's going to start with Siena, and then we get Iona. No, it's not starting with Siena. What am I saying? It's starting with Iona. I'm getting these games mixed up a little bit with the tweet I read earlier. I wrote the wrong dates down, so I apologize for that. But either way, we got basketball coming at us very soon. Monmouth has a real chance this year. We've said it the last few years. Monmouth has a real chance once again to get back to the NCAA tournament. So let's hope that Totley gets healthy quick. Let's hope Reddy gets healthy quick. Let's hope King Rice has these guys ready to go. Everybody's following protocols. It seems like they are. It seems like this team is very serious about what's going on. They're sticking together. They're looking out for each other. And George Pappas and company are doing a good job trying to keep these guys healthy and together. So if we get all that, King Rice calls some timeouts at the right time and puts the right guys in there, this team might be holding up a trophy in Atlantic City in March or May or whatever they have it. And this team's got a real shot this year. So if they get down early, don't give up on them. Keep watching this team. Support every way you can. And if we get to watch in person, great. We get back into the Ocean First Bank Center. We watch them. We cheer for them. We root them on. And let's just hope for a great season here in Monmouth.
And if you don't get a chance to go to the Ocean First Bank Center and you want to be a part of the Monmouth fan experience, we post this on Twitter. We post it on Facebook. Ryan will have it out on some different outlets to listen to the podcast. We are going to be asking for questions. We love feedback. So make sure that you interact with us. We are all in the journey together. And probably this year, more than ever before, the best way to enjoy sports and get your mind off of what's going on is to interact with other people in your fandom umbrella. So please reach out to us, support. Thanks everybody for listening. Go Hawks, stay healthy. It's basketball season, baby.
Mark, I'm going to ask you, don't sign off just yet because I'm not sure. We are using a new app this year. We're not using Podbean anymore. They were robbing me of money. So we're using a new app. Don't sign out yet because I don't want it to end. I'll let you know when to stop. So thanks everybody for listening. We are looking forward to a great season of Monmouth basketball. Listen to the podcast. If you know anybody that's not listening to it, give it a chance. Tell people to listen up because it's the main source for Monmouth content besides Eddie and Steve on the broadcast. All right. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks for listening.